Introduce yourself, man.
What's up, world? My name is Denizulu. I'm a poet and griot. That's the French colonial word for the oral historian, the African storyteller. The Wolof call them Jewel, and the Mandi call them Jali. So a good friend of mine calls me the Jali griot. Another good minister brother, and I figure everybody should have a ministerial brother in their life or their circle. Should be somebody you know that's got some spiritual acumen in your world. He calls me the urban griot, trying to see if I can get legal with it, but until then. I don't know why this brother got me on this camera. I don't know what to tell y'all.
The conversation was right, man.
We was having a conversation about my relationship. I won't say I'm elder in the tooth. I'm getting elder. I don't embrace words like old. I have a very, as a poet, that's my thing. Poetry, storytelling, oral history. And from that perspective, I know that words have power. I see a lot of things online where people are affirming, much people younger than me, affirming that the power of life and death indeed is in the tongue. So you got to watch what you say. That's what Granny meant by watch your mouth. We say we believe that, but that's not what we practice. Anyway, we're talking about relationships and the one that I'm presently in, how that came about. Intense, wasn't planned, just like Cupid didn't shoot me with an arrow, bust me upside my head with a club. I'm like, what's going on? So I'm asking the question, being real flip and flamboyant, what's going on? And I hear the inner voice, and I'm learning to discern that.
What it was telling you to talk to?
No, the inner voice in me said, you asked for this.
Yeah.
As I was telling brother Mr. Green Eyes, that my perspective is always African centered, as best as I can approximate that, because we don't know as African Americans what our African. Speak of the beast. That's her calling me now. Let me put my phone on silent. I told her I'm in the studio. She's a mess. But anyway, we can only approximate what that is. My brother, who was deep in the culture, traditionally and spiritually, said or wrote that we are definitely African Americans. We're a new species, for lack of a better word, of those African people. Our experience here in America is unlike any in human history, where all of your history is erased. Your language, your faith, your culture, your traditions, everything is gone. And so you now there's the innate stuff, the stuff that just comes out that you didn't know there was a root to. But anyway, so I'm hearing this voice and it says to me, you asked for this, because my perspective is real African. So when we begin to talk about love and relationships, I don't think we know what we're talking about, because who defined the love for us? Where did you get your definition? If not from Webster Thorndike or, some romantic novel, some romantic movie, some old school love song, and all of those based on someone whose opinion about love I know I can't trust, because they never showed us any love or respect. So how can I trust them about relationship? So anyway, with that said, I hear this voice. It said that you asked for this, because that's what I've been questioning. I want to know what love is based on our indigenous belief, our Aboriginal perspective. How did we define love? was it separate or was it a part and parcel of just the life experience? So how do we do that? And so with that, I heard the voice say, "You asked for this." So I must have asked for her. And I'm willing to go the experience, but then I'm a lot older now. Back
How
in
old
my
is she?
20s.
Is she younger than you?
Hmm?
I asked for this. I asked for this. Oh, I got
Yes,
it.
yeah, she's younger than I am. But I think I've gotten old enough to know my responsibility, my part to play. So that's where we are, day by day. I'm here in Brother Green Eye's studio, laying some tracks of some poetry that I wrote. I'm thinking the time is now. The universe is urging me. The Most High, the Eternal One, is urging me. The ancestors are whooping me. And with whatever breath and motivation and energy I have left, I have an obligation to tell what I know, what I remember, to pass what has been created through me. That's what we have.
Yeah.
Hope prayerfully we will get a chance to do this dialogue again. I'm here picking this brother's brain, and so you'll see this post on my thing at some point, but we're gonna get this out.
Yeah, man. So for all my listeners, let them know your music, let them know your music background, your music history, as far as being a DJ, and what got you actually doing the spoken word and doing your poetry.
Well, I started back musically back in the 70s.
Okay, that's pretty far back, but
Yeah, back in the 70s.
Good.
And I was the generation before Kool Herc and those guys laid the foundation for hip hop. So by the time hip hop came around, I was already in the military. I was overseas. Dr. Vibes was created by the time that came over. That was my DJ name back in the day, Dr. Vibes. I was doing pool parties at Esplanade Garden in Harlem, and with Warcraft the Bath Productions. Peace upon the spirit of Brother Jerry Bennett, who he had the equipment and he knew I had the feel for it. We were doing boat rides up and down the Hudson during the summer. I don't know if they still do that up in New York, but that's how I got my, initial start. I was the DJ on at the Grapevine Lounge, 159th and Broadway. And then I left and went into the military. My intention was to do broadcasting in the military, but the man ain't gonna never make it easy for you to do what you're good at. He's gonna make you jump through some hoops. And I missed that as my AFC, Armed Forces Radio, Armed Forces Broadcasting, because I didn't type a certain word per minute. I think I missed it by like 6 words per minute. And because I missed that, I became security police. But the universe will find a way. And so I wound up, while still in the service, working at an Italian radio station off base, Punto Radio Nave, in Pordenone, Italy. And I was doing my thing at late night on this radio station, and record owner, Good Music, Flavio, I think was his name, at Good Music in Pordenone, had heard about my radio show and introduced me to one of the engineers of the first privately owned radio station in Italy, 101 FM, Radio Milan International, RMI. And the next thing I know, I was their English-speaking overnight DJ, doing radio live from Milan, playing funk and soul on an Italian radio station, not speaking a lick of Italian.
But they
Italians
loving the music.
loving the music.
They loving the music.
Calling me up and like The only thing they knew to say to me was my name. My face was on because I started with them on their 5th year anniversary. Prior to that radio station, there was no public radio or television. It was all government controlled. And so this is a listen up, y'all, because we are at the precipice of that right now if we allow certain folks to get their hands on the FCC. So the radio stations were owned only by the government. And this was shortly after World War II, and even after the Vietnam conflict, but they were a fascist nation. They were controlled by Mussolini. So whatever programming they got was from the government and from that government's perspective. There was pirate radio stations. They would broadcast in boats off of the coast and, send it to the people. But the first radio station to be put on the books was Radio Milan International 101, and I was working for them. Happened to be there for their 5th year anniversary. And my face was on billboards along with all the DJs all over the city of Milan.
So when you moved to Florida, how did all that up?
Well,
were they already knowing your background there?
Well, they kind of knew my background. Yes, yeah. I'm gonna be honest with you. I was able to walk into WTMP 11:50 a.m. in Tampa based solely on my credentials, off of my experience. I didn't have any of the credentials. Everybody else had come from broadcasting school with their degrees in broadcasting. I walked in there because I had just come from a radio station in Milan. I keep saying ironically, but I know nothing's ironic. All of this was being orchestrated by unseen energy. And so I go to WBLS New York at the time that
you did a radio show?
No. I went there trying to get on radio.
Yeah.
And the Percy Sutton, the Sutton family owned them because Inner City Broadcasting owned a number of big black FM stations.
I'm glad I cut all this out. Trying to
So anyway, Inner City Broadcasting was owned by the Sutton family. Percy Sutton was a city council, was Manhattan Borough president. The island of Manhattan, New York. My mother had connections. So she said, if you're going to do this radio thing and that's what your interests are, she made sure I talked to the right people. So she sent me down there and I got an audience with Percy and his son. And he told me, and I told him about the offer that had been made to me from Radio Milan International. And so he said at the time he couldn't give me a job. He said, but he was always a gambling man and he felt that I should take the gamble and go back to Italy. My cousin, God bless her, Sweetie, hit the number. I had just gotten out of the service, so I had been discharged. I'm back in New York. How am I planning on getting back to Italy to this job opportunity? Sweetie hit the number. And with 5 babies in her house, Sweetie bought my ticket back to Milan. So I get to Milan, they put me on. In that period of time, I got to hang out and interview the Harlem Globetrotters, Angela Bofield, Earth, Wind and Fire, Maurice White of Earth, Wind and Fire. I got to see Bob Marley do one of his last concerts before he passed. It was a blessed time. So when I left Italy and I came to Florida, the doors just kind of opened up for me. So I started WTMP. I went over to WRXB in St. Petersburg. I wound up on WSRZ at the time, 102.5, the closest thing that the Bay Area had to a jazz station. I went to Magic 96, WMGG.
Where was that at?
All this was in Tampa,
In
in
Tampa,
the
Florida.
Tampa, Florida area. And I did the circuit. I then also worked as a television crew. I ran audio for the 6 and 11 p.m. news with WTSP TV in Florida.
Okay.
Wound up at the best little radio station on the planet, 88.5 WMNF to the family. And
Why they
so
showed a lot of love or something?
not just a lot of love, a lot of freedom. That's
Just to be
public,
you?
public radio.
Yeah.
So they were the PBS station in the market.
Okay.
So they were the station that public radio broadcasts were heard, and everybody did their individual genre. My genre, because they didn't have it, was Quiet Storm. There was no Quiet Storm nowhere on the FM band in that market at the time, and I started.
Wow.
It was called The Flow.
Wow.
And so I followed the blues man, soul man, Bob Shire.
And that, so it was called The Flow, right? And don't you got a Facebook page named that also?
Yes, The Flow. Yes,
So let them know.
well,
let
I
them
have
know
a
the name
I have a Facebook page called For Lovers Only, also AKA The Flow. And for close to 20 years, I did a show at midnight to 3 a.m. I read Black Erotica live on the air. I mean, I did some wild stuff on that radio station. I had people who would call me up and say, "Boy, you crazy." I mean,
Yeah.
but they enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And even to this day, I still every once in a while will get some. I had listenership in Europe.
Wow.
Folks who were listening
that
via the internet.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is all before this media.
Yeah, that was
Media.
like XM radio, right?
Well, no,
Was it XM?
no. In fact, it was in its infancy, broadcasting, co-broadcasting, or how do you ever would call it? We would do a live FM air broadcast,
Okay.
and then we would simulcast. Thank you.
Okay.
We would simulcast on the internet.
Okay. So you're hitting multiple.
Yeah, but
multiple
this was brand new.
This is when it first. Okay. Yeah.
First came out. There was no, medium for this. We were just doing what we were doing.
Oh yeah.
And so I began to garner listenership that way.
Mhm.
Of course, I'm just doing my thing. I'm not so much paying attention, and was doing other stuff I shouldn't have been doing. Had I been a lot more,
Yeah.
you know,
You were all human.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I've learned to stop beating myself up about it. But anyway, so here I am now, approaching 70 and so, and I'm know I have something to say and something to offer, so I'm giving it here with Mr. Green Eyes.
That's dope.
And
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that you guys will appreciate it.
Yeah, we're glad to hear from you. We're glad to hear your story, man.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, and but until next time.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Online, be looking for again, For Lovers Only, all together. On Facebook, For Lovers Only, AKA The Flow.